Sorry, this is Cindy.
And it's Michael.
From Part-Time Permies. And sorry about that. I always forget to unmute us. That's not good. But if you could just give me a okay if the sound is okay, too loud, too soft, or perfect. We do have the fan still running on the fireplace, so hopefully that's not too loud. Yeah, let's go turn that down. So just check on how everyone's doing. We have a number of people in the room tonight. Your mom's here. She was the first one commenting. Happy anniversary, by the way. And yes, great minds think alike. Think alike on that. We are probably going to have a duck discussion a little bit later.
Yeah, we just had duck.
We did just have duck too, and cranberry sauce.
I got a pretty good deal on a duck, and had cranberry sauce that I made a while ago sitting in the fridge. So
yeah. And then we have the Living Garden in here. Linda Taylor, Incense Shop. Oh, and a lot of people are chiming in here. Diana, Justice Acres, Curie, hello, Farm Alarm, Linda, I already said that. Sorry, I was just reading down the list here, but there's a lot of people in here. That's awesome. Wendy Benjamin, Suburban Hillbilly, and Teresa Wheeler, awesome. Come and Noah's Ark is in. Hello, hello. So I am, oh, a lot of people coming in. So, and I think Roots and Refuge are still going right now. So we were just watching them a few minutes ago anyway. Yep. Want some geese?
if they're dead and their hands come in this direction.
To cook or to add to the farm. We have enough geese for our guard, to be guards.
For our guards.
Yes, although we've had some predator issues recently, but we'll get to that. Hi, Chelsea. Welcome back. So just a quick little rundown on this week's videos. I did get 2 out. The second one went out today, earlier this afternoon. So kind of last minute for this week, but the first one came out. We finally got the part 4 of the greenhouse build done and up. Don't know why I thought I could put that together while on the road, but I got it done after we got back. So there's that one. So if you haven't seen, if you're watching the greenhouse series, that's the 4th video that is taking us to being finished. And of course, we're going to put videos up on how we use it, and if we make any adjustments to it, we'll do that.
Put some basic costs or equipment lists, some of the specialty items, where you can source it.
Yeah, so we're working on putting together an equipment list for that.
Sick dog.
Oh no! Huh. Oh no, Suburban Hillbilly. I hope your dog's not too bad. So that's sad. But yeah, so we will put together a parts list for the greenhouse video. I'm working on that. I do have receipts and things I'm going to go through, and I'll put kind of I'll add up the cost that we had on that, or at least on the pieces that we used. There were a couple things we switched out. So on the things that we used, to give you an idea of how much it cost us with how we did it here and where we got our parts from as well, because we did shop around a little bit.
Found one really neat supplier that had exactly what we want. I don't know much about them, but they seem to be very small, small to very small, and they do custom builds and do-it-yourself greenhouses
and kits,
and they have some videos and other stuff. I was just looking for the parts after we were already into this, knowing that I needed tubular parts that didn't have end, they could make end connections.
Yeah,
and they look like they're small batch custom welded. And so I don't know much about them, but I kind of like it, and their prices
didn't cost too much.
Prices were decent on that, so good link. We don't know them, we don't get anything for it, but it's a good resource.
Absolutely. So we'll get that list together. What I'll do is I will link it. What I'll probably do is put it in our webpage as a one of the blogs. I'll put it there, but I'll link it to Facebook page. I will link it to each of those 4 videos too. So if you go back later, all of our links, by the way, are down below. So if you have any questions on where to find us on Facebook, Instagram, our webpage, and all of that, we do have them in the description below, so you can check those out if you like.
A good question, a lot of times we ask where people are from. I think a good question today is, how many of you are over 35 degrees or are not covered in snow?
Yes.
We meet both of those, but we're not very cold. We're in
We
our
weren't over 35 today.
no, we're in our mid-20s today for a high.
Yeah.
And we got just a dusting of snow. That big storm started
Yesterday.
south of us,
Yeah.
and we just got a touch of lake effect that was probably unrelated.
Yeah.
So we're really, I mean,
we haven't had much snow.
We're technically snow covered, but in reality, it's not.
An inch.
It's not. Yeah, it's not even an inch. I don't think.
Probably not. We had, I think, it snowed a little bit on Friday too.
For all those people getting 8, 9, 10 inches.
Yeah.
We didn't get any of it. So.
No.
Plow truck has been sitting for well over a month. Hasn't even been turned on.
We haven't used it since the end of November.
I plowed once, and
is that
I think that was questionable that I needed to. I just wanted to scrape it before we got ice.
Is that Delia or Delia? Delia? I'm not sure how to say your name. Cortez. Yeah. Felt like a beautiful spring day. Did some spring cleaning. Awesome.
Warmed up into the 50s. That's pretty cold for Texas.
For Texas, yes.
That's a cool day.
Woke up at 33.
That's heavy, cool. Heavy coats and boots and everything else.
Whereas I was outside in my sweatshirt earlier today for a little bit.
No snow. Yeah, Raleigh doesn't get much. We were in last week in in Asheville.
In Raleigh. Raleigh rarely gets snow in Raleigh. Okay.
Yeah, well, Raleigh's a little different than Asheville.
Yeah.
We had 60, almost 65 degrees when we left on Monday, and coming back through the Carolinas and Kentucky, it was about 70 degrees out. So, yeah, it was pretty nice on that drive home on Monday, but we quickly cooled off.
So,
there we go, 42 and no snow. All right, so that's
okay. Yep.
Please send snow to Scotland.
How often do you get snow in Scotland?
There are some areas, right, in Scotland that occasionally get a dusting.
I
don't know.
Yeah, it goes pretty far north. I don't know.
13 inches of snow, Teresa. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Scotland is actually way north of us, technically.
Yeah.
If you look at latitudes, except they get the Gulf Stream warming things up along the British Isles in general. But
Asheville, it averages 11 inches a year.
Have they already gotten it?
I think the first storm got close to it.
No, I think they were 6 inches.
Yeah, I don't know if they got any additional on this stuff, but probably not. I know some rain came through, but
yeah. So yeah, we've been cold. We warmed up. I think we were warm when we went to Asheville, when we went to North Carolina.
Yeah, but it was pouring rain for 2 days. It had been raining almost nonstop for I think 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We kind of caught the end of it. Things were sopping wet.
I'm glad it wasn't snow.
Even driving from Indiana all the way south on that drive.
Yeah. It was
fields were sopping wet. We were surprised.
Yeah. Everything was wet, definitely. So anyway, yeah, the other video that I got up today was a little montage video on teaching the beef butchery course for Justin Rhodes. That's where we were last weekend.
They're supposed to get snow in the and where they are in Scotland.
Oh, cool.
So first winter said it's supposed to be really bad. It isn't. Well, next year will be really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of get one heavy year and then kind of one off year, sort of back and forth. Yeah. We get it early and then it finishes. We get it late. Yeah. So far, we've been pretty mild.
Yeah, we have been this year so far. I think they predicted that a little bit though. But anyway, yeah, we were in Asheville, North Carolina last weekend, where Mike was teaching the beef butchery class, which I forgot to link down below. But
10 foot under snow. Oh, that's cool. We were in we were in Canada a number of years ago, north of Quebec City.
Yeah.
About it was March,
3 meters,
beginning of March.
They had a base.
Yeah, they had a base on the hill on the Bay of St. Paul of at least 3 meters.
Yeah. We were skiing. We were,
and it was starting to go down at that point. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, we went dog sledding and skiing. That was a heck of a lot of fun up there.
I'd like to see it without 3 meters. What the land actually looked like.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yes. So anyway, did you want to talk at all about the beef butchery course?
We can.
There's that video, by the way. I'm gonna pull it back up because we keep bouncing around here. But this video, teaching the beef butchery course. I haven't seen your video yet. You haven't seen the video, but no, it's a little montage. And then we did an intro and exit together on this video here. but partially because that whole trip, and of course being on Justin's channel, obviously bumped us quite a bit in our subscribership, and we did meet one of our subscriber goals. In fact, we flew by it. So at the end of that video, there is a little information about a giveaway. So you want to watch that if you're interested, because we did want to say thank you to all our subscribers, the old ones and the new ones. I think we actually doubled our subscribership with that trip.
We did in about a week.
In about a week. So which,
yes. And we had a new record on the live show last week. We had 100 and
over 100. Yeah.
Over 100 concurrent.
But we had people. Justin on the show too.
And Justin was, and Justin, for those of you who weren't here, was on for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Sounding like we'll probably be back down there in a month, a little over a month.
About a month and a half.
A month and a half.
Yeah.
And there might be a chance where we could get another visitor. So.
Yeah, so we might be able to see about that next time as well.
Yeah, we've got some questions coming in for Ask the Chef.
Yep.
Beef ribs are good. There's lots of things we can do with those. We'll remind us, and we'll talk about that.
Yes, Suburban Hillbilly, bring that back up. I did want to run through a couple things before we get to our regular things. One other thing, since we got back and probably started a few weeks before we left, was we have predators in our area that seem to be getting hungry. This track was within feet of my poultry net.
Last night or this morning.
I saw it this morning. It's pretty fresh, although it stopped snowing, I think, late last night.
The best part of getting a light snow cover is we went back in the woods and you can actually see what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to check the poultry net and see if there's no prints
inside the net.
Yeah, and then also to be able to just take a quick perimeter look. It gives us a lot better idea than in the summer, because we don't have cameras out or anything.
Right. Yeah.
To know if there's much activity going on and if we're running it off or it's not there or whatever.
What's going on. So that, I want to say, is a coyote print, because it's definitely not big enough to be a Great Dane print. No. Great Dane's laying back there. And I don't think it's small enough to be a fox print. And we do have a lot of coyotes. Our neighbor has picked them up on the trail cams, and we get big coyotes in this area. So,
I would say, just for the way for Teresa, so the question is the butchery guide that is going out. You don't have to have livestock. We don't have livestock.
No.
If you want to know more about selecting your meat, quality traits, or what makes grass-fed different, or free range, or what's the difference between dry aging and wet aging.
Or if you're going to buy like whole sides or quarters from a local farm and you want to break it down yourself,
you may choose to break a quarter or break primals into smaller ones and finish the fabrication, or you may want to instruct. They give you the cut sheet, and butcher shops are all similar but a little different. So you get a cut sheet. I want this and I want that, and it will help you understand better where the things are coming from, and also some of the potential things that could be done or that you want to do. So it allows you to get actively involved at whatever point you want, and then disengage and let somebody else, if you don't have the time, resources, or interest, let somebody else take up a portion. I would say it is useful to really understanding meat in many ways. I would recommend that probably if you're going to be doing some at least light butchering, it's more useful.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at getting into doing portions of it, to doing the whole thing. So yeah, don't exclude yourself if you're not eating meat, or
if you're vegetarian,
or you drop over at the site of red meat. Not that there's so much, you don't need to be part of the kill process. If that concerns you, the safety or the ability to do it, or you just don't want to be there. We weren't at the kill process because it happened 3 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
So all of those things can be adjusted for, which is actually a good reason to investigate some of these things more. Vegetarians and vegans, please don't.
Don't worry about it.
We're okay with you choosing not to eat meat.
Anyway, so I'm going to get back to, someone else said they've had coyotes too. They're frightened. Yeah, this set of tracks actually went completely around. It came out south of our barn, went in between our barn and our dog run, up to where the electric poultry net is right now. We had the net on, even though the chickens weren't open to that. Because I like to keep the predators trained to the net as much as possible, and so that they don't try to push it over the next year. But then this coyote went all the way around the net.
Clearly looking and hungry.
All the way around the net, all the way, like up to the point where I have two nets that come together and pretty darn close. It went into that crack, turned around, probably sniffed the net and got shot.
I'm surprised that it got in that V.
Yeah. And then all the way around the other part of the net, which goes around the silky area, we have our summer coop parked further north. It went north to that summer coop, checked that out, came back to the net, and then went back in the woods. It was definitely looking for food.
Yeah, and so interesting. So we can look at, obviously, we come in the morning or the afternoon. If we see anything in the electric fence and it's turned on, we've got a problem.
Yeah. There was no tracks in the fence.
If we see anything around it, it gives us indications of what's taking place.
Yeah.
And seeing something where it completely is surrounding it tells me they're pretty interested in looking for a way in.
But not challenging it.
And it's got to go through the fence, and they have to go into the coop. But then you can also look at the yard, and in our woodsy area where we walk, we saw a lot of activity right after the snow, and some of it's deer and such. So rabbits and squirrels. So we can get a pretty good idea of what the regular pressure and activity is in the woods, and evaluate that against the yard. So we get good ways of evaluating what's going on.
We've lost chickens during the middle of the day to coyotes previously, so we have them. We have tons of them around here. There were some even bigger tracks further back. So there was a second coyote, I believe, unless it was a dog. I mean, frankly, I can't tell the difference between coyote print and dog print. But we don't have a lot of stray dogs in our area, and we do have confirmation of a lot of coyotes on our neighbor's trail cam. And we had smaller prints, like little ones back in the woods too, which I haven't usually seen the bigger prints and the smaller prints in the same area. I think that's fox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've never visually seen a fox.
And I hear they don't like to overlap territories because coyotes will attack foxes.
So raccoon prints are fairly different.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's we've had some dogs, and just kind of on the run dogs. We've probably lost chickens to dogs twice, maybe 3 times, and we've lost chickens to coyotes about the same number.
Yeah.
So it's not an extremely pressing. Again, you lose some chickens here and there. It's not like large livestock. It's a loss of feeding and whatever else, but it's not that big of a deal as long as you're not repetitively losing them. And we were getting to a point at the beginning of the week where we were actually repetitively losing some chickens, but that was a different issue we found out this week.
Yeah, and Suburban Hillbilly and Noah's Ark talking about coyotes in the city. When we lived outside New York City, it's, if you guys know that area at all, you have the Bronx is north of Manhattan, and north of that is really suburbia.
Manhattan has a river that passes through, so
well, the Bronx does.
Or the Bronx into Manhattan, so you can't get wildlife. There's a train bridge that there's been very small amounts of wildlife that's come across the train bridge.
Yeah.
And the river's pretty much shored up, so it's not like it's impossible for an animal to get up the bank, but most places
it's a sheer drop off.
It's a sheer drop off, and it's all pegged in with wood or metal, and it's dirty, and
but there have been coyotes getting down to the Bronx Zoo, which there's a river with tree lined that goes from the mountains further north and the reservoir down into the Bronx. And there have been coyotes that go up and down there, and it's completely city. I mean, there's some trees along the river, but they go straight into the city. But
when the parkways they're V-shaped, usually along valleys or rivers. So it's actually and then the houses have come more and more density as you get into the city.
Yeah.
So you get a natural filter and a funnel of pushing wildlife down the river accidentally. They don't. And they get deep into the city. So,
someone in California who had a mountain lion stuck in her peacock pen had a nice snack while in there.
Oh yeah, there are mountain lions in New York. I don't think we have much issue where we are right here.
No,
but just north of where we were living, I have a friend who hunts and does a little trapping, and he's got 1 or 2 cats, and even though a lot of people don't like trapping. Most people, when it comes to a cat in their neighborhood, they're pretty happy for anybody to come in and do it. So he did, as a courtesy, he got, I know a couple years ago, he got a pretty large cat.
There was one report, I have no idea if it was ever really confirmed, of a mountain lion further north from here, and some bears further north, and not that far from here though. We don't have a huge number of large predators in the area.
Yeah, mountain lions in Texas. I'm sure you got out in the open. You got stuff. We have friends here that have donkeys, pet donkeys.
Yeah.
And they're only there to be pets
Guards.
and to be guards. And,
livestock guardian animals.
And, kick the big cats or whatever else comes in. And so other than that, they're just pets.
Yep.
We don't have one. It's our friends.
No. We just have the geese, which I don't think would stand up to a big, large predator.
Well, it didn't stand up too well to a bird this week, so.
Yeah, and I know, okay, we lost a silkie to a hawk this week. He caught it mid-action, basically. And I've seen Gus chase off hawks before. So I don't know if he was distracted or he was in the coop while the silkie was out or something, but...
We've lost, what, 5 or 6 birds in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Which is, we didn't lose that many all summer.
No,
I don't think we've lost that many in a year.
But I think this hawk has been picking off some of the smaller birds.
So we lost 2 of our young chicks.
3 chicks.
3 chicks, and then we lost 3 silkies.
3 silkies and 3 chicks. We're down to 1 silkie hen right now. 2 silkies, I think, was probably a raccoon. They went broody and didn't go into their coop like they normally do. And this was probably the night we got back. I didn't go check on them that night. I checked on them in the morning. So probably my fault. And I didn't tell them to leave this other place closed. So it was my fault because I didn't expect them to go broody in January.
We've had a couple of the babies just disappeared, but they're kind of sneaking under the fence into the yard. I think
they're going over the fence, but yeah.
Yeah, and then I went over to check on water and eggs and stuff midday, and I found this one silkie that had been forced all the way out
into a corner.
To a corner, and was feathers all over, and its neck was pecked out and bled out, but it was still warm. And I look up in the tree right above the sassafras tree, right beyond it.
There
was a hawk, and then I saw it out of the window yesterday, but they've been locked up for 2 days, and so it was back hungry. But our neighbor had warned me he had seen a hawk maybe a week or 2 ago. He goes, "Oh, there's a hawk here." They all went in.
He lost some.
He sent me a text. They're across the street, and he had lost a couple. And I said, "Well, it's not over here," and I didn't worry about it. So I think he shut his up and kept them out, and so the hawk got hungry, came over and found ours, and has picked off a number. Ours are now shut up, so hopefully it disappears and goes somewhere else.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. He'll start looking for.
It was feeding every few days.
Yeah, looking for food somewhere else. So I'm thinking every couple days it was picking off a bird, but yeah. Anyway, hi Tina. So
the worst predators are rat. Yep.
They can be pretty nasty. I think raccoons are probably the nastiest, and
possums aren't nice, but raccoons are really nasty.
And yeah, and I think it was probably the raccoon that got the broody girls because there
wasn't much left, just skin, and I don't think an owl or a hawk
would eat that much.
Could eat that much.
Yeah, two birds at once. Yeah. 2 broodies right next to each other. Fox could have gotten it, but I haven't noticed anything challenging the fence, and a raccoon could have gone up and over the permanent coop and run
over the
area.
roof line,
yeah, so
out of the trees over the roof, which we haven't really noticed an issue. That'd be an interesting thing to look on the roof while there's still snow before it melts, and see if
there's anything up there.
See if we see any footprints that look 4-legged, and
or at least behind the coops. I was behind the coops. I didn't see anything but the coyote print. Yeah, rats are smart. I know people who've had pet rats before. And then I know lab rats, too.
Just eat eggs and chicken food. Yeah, I heard something scurrying around in the barn a couple of days ago. I saw it kind of shoot under the lawn tractor, probably a mouse. So.
A mouse. Yeah, we have more mice.
We haven't seen rats.
No.
In fact, our barn is fairly shut up. Yeah. Not that a rat couldn't get in there, and then our food are in steel bins, galvanized bins, so there is scrap and small things around, but no great amount to feed them.
Invite the crows for hawk issues. Yes, the crows will scare hawks away, but I've also seen crows attack chickens, mainly little ones. Our neighbor got it caught on camera where crows were in a group picking off baby chicks in hers, and we had one small silkie get caught by crows.
We heard all this crowing while we were walking the dog a year or so ago, and came up and said, "Well, that was weird." Came out, and there was a dead bird, and the crows, and we couldn't believe that, but they pack hunt and take out a bird.
They will take advantage if they think they can get it. They'll go for the dead things first most of the time, but they will take out anything. They're opportunistic.
So,
They'll take out anything.
so we don't have a tremendous amount of snow, which slows down the feeding and stuff, but it has gotten colder and we're getting in. So I think a lot of the small rodents are dug in deep and hibernating. So the predatory animals are starting to get a little bit hungry.
Yes.
The deer and everybody else are doing pretty well because there's still a lot of grasses and things that have been around. So I think they've actually been feeding pretty well into the winter.
Yep. Anyway, should we get off the predator?
Yeah.
Justin Road had a
He did. He mentioned that. We briefly talked about that.
So it's not as common. They'll go for things that are easy, is basically what they go for. Anyway, I'm going to get off the topic of predators and start moving towards food. You did make some sourdough today, too.
I did. Well, I made it over the last few days.
Yes.
It's not a one-day project. Yes. Yeah. It's been a while, so I reacted. I guess I made it the week before Christmas when we got together with family. I made 2 loaves. And so today I did some longer, longer loaves. Instead of doing the round boules, I did some, some bastones or whatever. So those are it's Stefan's rye starter. It is primarily rye and whole wheat, but I was running out of.
And Stefan, by the way, is on Instagram, not on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I was running out of whole wheat rye. I didn't have a lot of rye.
Yeah.
I was running out of whole wheat, so I just put a little splash of white flour in there. And yeah, so that it came out pretty good. I forgot to put the salt in. It was funny because there was another last night. I guess it was
this morning. Tangi.
Oh, was it Tangi?
It was Tangi at Freedom Homestead on Instagram. Said she forgot to add the salt, and I went down the hall to say.
So what? Yeah, is this dough structure? Is this crumb structure? Because of the limbs, that does affect your crumb structure. And I'm like, darn it, I forgot to add the salt. So what happens is on the sourdough, because it ferments a little bit slower. Typically, you let it go for about 2 hours, and then you add the salt to allow the ferment to start. Well, I let it go, and then I add a little extra hydration, and I should have put the salt in, and I forgot. So I hadn't even thought about it until she said it. At that point, I was already starting to let it warm up, and I was ready to start. And I was afraid if I mixed it, not only would I lose air structure, but I just have a hard time integrating the salt. Yeah. So I left it alone, and I know that you can make bread without salt. The yeast can become a little too active, and the crumb structure won't be quite as good. But it is noticeable, even modest amounts of salt, the difference in flavor and how bland it tastes. Yeah. So, we cut into it, looked at it, got really nice crumb structure. Even though I had a hard time, it was so soft getting it shaped and such. And then I was like, yeah, it's bland. Otherwise, it's pretty good, but it could use some salt. So I need some heavily good salted butter on it.
Yeah, that would be.
Or whatever. So, yeah, we made those.
What's your process for doing the sourdough starter? Now, this we got from Stefan.
The process is trade with somebody who has a good sourdough starter.
Or you can start your own. We've done that.
You can start your own, and we've done that. So you typically take a flour source, and you can have it wetter or not. Stefan uses rye, which is common. Yeah. And
it's very French.
And a lot of the good starters are rye. Rye, you get different bacteria, and it digests differently. So
it's more sour.
Yeah, the flavoring and this is a slow active sourdough, so it doesn't rise that fast, but actually a slow maturing loaf, as long as you can plan the time, is better flavor. Mm-hmm. So his is 100% rye. It's in baking, you do baking ratios. So it's called 100% hydration. So for X amount of flour by ounces, or really grams is better. So say 100 grams of flour, you take 100% of that flour amount and you add water. So it's 100 grams of water. So 50-50.
In weight.
But if you do things by ratios, it makes scale up and doing some of the recipe work easier. Yeah. So it's 100% hydration sourdough. You basically leave it out on the counter and you let it sit for a few days, and it will become it'll become bubbly. So 2 things happen. You get natural yeast from the air. Some people will start it with a little bit of grapes because there's natural fruit. Because
on the skin
has natural yeast. Yeah. So look for a good organic grape. So you may start it with something like that, fruit.
We've used beer before, unfiltered beer.
You can use beer. Yep, if you have an unpasteurized, unfiltered beer.
Yeah.
You can start it with beer. Now, beer yeast is.
I had one going that was a Kalamazoo beer, although it was in New York. It was specific. It was Bell's
Yes.
beer.
But the
starter.
one difference is
Yeah.
beer yeast exhibits flavors, really nice beer flavors, and digestion of fruit juices and grain, and then it also has a fairly good carbonation level.
Mm-hmm.
Bread is for a different style of flavor and a different lift. So bread yeast and beer yeast do differentiate slightly.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you can't start a
You can still
sourdough
use
that
it.
way, but you may, So anyway, so you start out with whatever the naturally occurring yeast comes in through the air or through some fruit or whatever, and then you add in naturally you'll get bacteria. Now you'll get good bacteria, you'll get bad bacteria, you get a variety of things. You're looking for the lactobacillus, which is the souring bacteria. It will show up, and between the yeast and the bacteria, they will outcompete dangerous bacteria.
Yeah.
And they will create a balance between the bacteria and the yeast. So the yeast causes the bready flavors, the richness, and the bubbles. The lactobacteria causes the souring, and you do need to feed it. As it becomes more and more sour and it's eating all the sugars with the yeast, the bacteria takes over, eats some of the additional residues and alcohol that's produced by the yeast. And then, so you need to feed it so you don't kill it. So you let it sit out for a longer period of time. It should get bubbly. Stir it every day or so. Cover it with just a little cloth. And eventually it'll form a sourdough. It may improve a little bit with time. So you can do that with white flour or whole wheat flour or rye or some blend. And then I tend to refrigerate it after I use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll hold it for a week or more. You don't have to feed it a lot. So the next thing you do is, spent grain works really well. I know people that do brewer's grain, but that's been cooked. So you could do that. So once you get the starter going, it will change over time. And if you don't attend to it occasionally, every week or so, by feeding it, it will die. You can freeze it or freeze dry it. If you're concerned that you're going to lose it and you really like it, you may want to hold a little bit back. But the other thing that happens is even if you get a sourdough from a specific area, San Francisco or wherever,
it'll take on the local.
Yeah, it will take on the bacteria locally. Will begin to slowly change it, so it won't be exactly the same. We did hear about a website that has sourdough starters from all over the world. And so they keep them under laboratory conditions, and they send out small amounts for you to get the culture, to start your own, and get something close to, say, a Scandinavian starter or a Russian starter. Buckwheat, you could do some buckwheat. So the grain, the culture, the climate.
Worst comes to worst, you could drink the beer while you're making the bread. Actually, that's what I do. I take, when I did the Bell's one, I haven't done it on video. I did this when we were in New York. I basically drank the beer until the bottom and all the yeast is in the bottom. And then I swirled what's left and put that in with my flour and water.
And you may, so we run a 100% hydration starter right now, which is pretty stiff and thick. My previous ones with white flour starters have been, I think, closer to 2 parts water and 1 part flour. So they've been wetter. And then,
a lot of questions coming through. The first one is, have you ever, and I know it was back here somewhere, have you ever baked in, was it an old-fashioned bread oven?
I haven't, well, I mean, I know about the oldest ones are the earthen domed ovens or cob ovens, which are still used around the world a lot, and they make really good bread. And a lot of them are flatbreads. I haven't ever done that. So when I took my bread classes in school, we actually had pretty new, sophisticated stone deck steam injection ovens that replicate some of the older styles, but give you the controls, and they're very expensive. Most places, almost everywhere I've worked, we did not have a baker, and we definitely didn't have a bread baker. People just can't afford to do that. Even when I was at the hotel, they didn't really make bread. I am friends with a local bread baker here, 2 local bread bakers that are both very good in different styles, both semi self-trained, and then have gone through other training. So one's more of a European French style, and one took on a French style self-trained, but became an American, really an American baker. And so
more country
yeah,
style.
a little more country style because grew up on a farm. Michigan likes a lot of loaf breads.
Yeah.
A lot of I don't know, a lot of farmhouse style English, Irish, German, whatever. It was loaf breads and sandwiches, not so much the Italian hard rolls and lean breads and the French baguettes. Don't make a lot around here because people don't buy a lot. I do miss a good sesame loaf or a good baguette. So they have. So one of the places had a old the coal oven that had just been converted to gas a couple years before they assumed that bakery, and they used that for years, and it was temperamental even on the gas, but it was they liked it, and then they unfortunately had a fire and destroyed the bakery a number of years ago. Through a lot of community efforts, the bakery got rebuilt, different location, and definitely a different oven. So they had to rework. And I was talking with the baker. They had to rework everything and reformulate some of their recipes. And they said there's one or two items they do not make because they've never been able to get it to satisfaction because the oven heats differently. So yeah, I would love to work more with some of the traditional ones, but they're finicky. The modern ones, you have a lot of control.
We're probably tempting a lot of people because there's a lot of people saying they've gone keto recently. So it's probably, some of them said they miss bread. Well, I'm going to switch topics here again and go to our featured foraged item because we're halfway through our show already. So every week, almost every week, I try to do a featured foraged item, which I list in the web page, which is listed down below. It's kind of a blog that I do a little research on identification, and if there's any medicinal values, I try to see if I can look up and see if there's any studies that confirm it, or if I don't have time, I'll just list the traditional medicinal uses as well. So this week, if you wanted to follow along, because I'm going to use my notes from my phone, this week the featured item is this, which if you haven't seen my webpage or links, I'm wondering how many people know which flower this is, and there's about a 20-second gap here. But this is not flowering right now, of course, in winter, but around here it'll flower all summer, basically midsummer through fall. And it'll be anywhere from a couple feet tall to almost 5 feet tall that I've seen around here. That flowering head, I'll bring up a different picture, which can give people more definitive. Wild carrot, Linda Taylor, yes. So it is a wild carrot. It's also known as Queen Anne's lace.
Anne's lace, yep.
Or bird's nest. So this is the flower. It's really tightly compact. It has, not always, but a lot of times I'll have this one single purple flower in the middle of all these bunches and the whole umbella of flowers here.
I'd say the ones in our yard most often do.
Most of them do, yeah, exactly. So Queen Anne's lace is a wild carrot, and it's not certain if it was basically a cultivated carrot that got loose and went nuts in the wild, and or if it was a precursor to the cultivated carrots. Yeah, they're
pretty abundant through the Midwest.
They grow all over the country, actually, at this point. They do like drier soils, lots of sun, so basically in old fields, roadsides, and such. So it does have a very pretty flower.
Rainbow Valley is like, good job, all these people that got it right. They're like, oh, it's a pretty flower. Yeah,
it is a pretty. Yep. Yeah. It is a carrot, Noah's Ark. Now, the question here is, I will call this a debatable edible, which usually I'll apply it to some things that you can only eat it at certain stages, and then it becomes toxic at other stages. So like pokeweed is kind of like that. Queen Anne's lace is edible completely. The issue is there are similar plants in the same family that are completely toxic. So you have to know how to identify it.
Deadly.
Like deadly toxic.
Like, so you don't ever want to, accidentally make the mistake.
Poison hemlock is the big one.
Yeah.
They do have features that are completely different, but you have to be absolute 100+% sure that you have Queen Anne's lace and not poison hemlock, because poison hemlock would kill you. So Queen Anne's lace is completely edible. One of the defining features, though, is this purple flower in the middle of the entire umbel here. Not all the Queen Anne's lace flowers have that. Most of them do, and that is one way to tell it apart. Another way to tell it apart is if you look at the stems. Queen Anne's lace stems, and not all, but most of the leaves have hairs on them, little fine hairs. So the entire things, and there's, a quick way to remember that is Queen Anne has hairy legs. Okay, well, back in that time,
Our
probably.
growings were what?
We are 6.
Yeah, it's changed.
Yeah, we're 6A, 5B on the edge of that. So this isn't growing right now. Well, technically, it's a biennial plant, so you can probably find it if you know where it is. You could probably find the roots. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have this plant in flower and you see something that looks kind of like carrot leaves, then if it's hairy, it's edible. If it's not, don't touch it.
It's kind of hard to tell the plant until it flowers. There's other things that are sort of similar
to it.
Veggie, well, not the veg exactly.
No.
There's some other little things that are on their way up.
Parsley is in the same family.
Yeah, there's until it matures more.
Yarrow
looks
not parsley. Parsnips.
Yeah.
Yarrow looks kind of similar, although the flower's not going to be this symmetric.
So people keep asking about, is there a carrot? Yeah, there is a small carrot on it. Depending on its maturity and
it's very thin though.
And the time of year. So as it dries, it will be
best in the winter to early spring.
Early spring when it regenerates, because as it matures and dries out, it will get tougher and tougher. But even on a big one, we've pulled a few.
Skinny.
It's very small. If you break it, it'll smell like a carrot.
It smells. I mean, even the stems and everything smell like carrot.
I don't think that hemlock smells at all like carrot.
It doesn't, and that is another defining feature. If you have a good sense of smell and it smells like a carrot, it probably is a carrot. But it does have a taproot that you can eat, and that is one of the vegetables, but it is a lot thinner. If you have rocky soil or very clayey soil, it can bend back and forth all over the place or split. It actually grows the straightest in loose sandy soil, which is actually what we have here. You can actually eat the leaves and use them like parsley.
Yeah, I think carrot leaves taste like crap. Even the cultivated ones. It was like you can put them in your salad.
Yep.
Yeah, you can put a few in there and they're all right. But you put more than a few carrots.
No, it's more as a seasoning.
or leaves in there. They're bitter.
They are.
You know what? Compost it and eat something that tastes good.
Other parts that some people like to eat would be the stems of the second year. It's a biennial, so it'll come back on the second year. And if you take a stem that's about 6 to 20 inches tall, still flexible, and cut it off.
The yarrow flower does not look anything like it.
It's an umbel,
even a stem only, it begins young and just.
Yeah,
it looks sort of similar, but not. Kinda. It's pretty easy to distinguish them.
Yeah, I think so too. And I do have another. If you search through that website, I do have yarrow in.
I don't know what hemlock smells like. We don't have any right now
on property. No.
And again, because it will burn. It can burn your skin and have a reaction, have a photo reaction. I wouldn't be messing around with it too much anyways. But
one of the differences, if you're looking at poison hemlock, the umbel, the flower cluster is wider, more spaced out than the wild carrot. And the stem is smooth and not hairy, and it has a film on it. It has a bloom on it. And that, if you get on your skin and then get it into the sun, is very photosensitive and could cause major irritations to the skin. I
like borage because it tastes like cucumber. Now, it is fuzzy, and some people, the fuzzy flavor can be annoying. Or some people,
eat the flower.
I don't like to eat a lot of it, but the flower is pretty, and especially when it's not fully open, it's got a little bit of a watery crunch, but I do like the cucumbery flavor. Yeah, as far as the carrot end, you could collect a bunch of them, but you got to go through all the washing up. You're not going to get much, and the texture may not be very, maybe a little tough.
So we don't do that.
I would, if you were trying to make a little stew just to make a point, or might flavor strongly, but are you going to make a side of, glazed carrots or something? No, in general, we don't pick them because it's not worth the effort. There's so
Yeah.
many carrots growing
And we
around
have
here.
carrots we have in our
Yeah,
garden, so
grow
we
some
don't.
nice old style
Yeah.
carrots.
Well, and
And
here's some other things that I found interesting. The in one of the foraging books, he likes to pick these stems when they're thicker, so second year, fairly tall, and then he peels the hairy part just with his finger, because I guess he could pull the outer skin off. And he said that's much sweeter than the
yeah,
root and carroty. So he actually likes that better than the root, and it's easier to get to. Um, there was another book that was suggesting cutting the flowers and battering them like tempura batter and frying them, but of course anything fried tastes
yeah,
good.
you put in a
Yeah.
decent oil and fry batter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the little blackish, purple flower is
Yeah.
a positive indicator for the carrot.
Absolutely. Hemlock will not have that tiny purple dot in the middle of that umbel. These flowers are tiny, so
Yeah,
um,
I think the hemlock flowers are bigger, right?
they are. The whole plant is bigger. It
Yeah, the
can
whole
get
plant
like
can get very tall.
it could get over 6 feet tall. So if you have a plant over 6 feet tall, it's probably not a wild carrot. Although I've seen them get around 5 feet tall. So if you had really rich soil, it
It's
might
more
grow
of the
bigger.
stem and the little head,
But
whereas yeah,
the flower is just like the branches for the umbel are more spread out, so you have gaps between the little flowers. Whereas the carrot, it's all closer together. So that's why.
by the way, for those, just quick
Yeah.
side for the hemlock and for the hogweed and some of the other similar things that have been
Yeah.
all over, that they're super invasive and that they could kill you. I was reading a story that says they're actually there are areas where they're showing up, but people are trying to track them down to not let them become further invasive. But people say that it's got a photosynthetic effect, that you break out sort of like poison ivy, and then it could be, a chemical burn that's quite severe. People get it on their face and
On
their
their skin.
mouth, in places, and it could lead to, extremely severe medical conditions. I was reading somebody said, well, you know what? As much as it is a problem, there's not a lot of it out there.
Yeah.
And actually, you can get similar chemical burns from a variety of other plants. And that, considering poison ivy is more dangerous in most ways. So, the scare factor of giant hogweed is reasonable, but probably should be a little moderated. However, if you find, and there are areas where if some counties, if you find hogweed, they'll come in and take it out for you because they want to eradicate it. But yeah,
Yeah.
so mixed opinions on that one, but it's not good because it's a big nuisance.
Yeah.
And you don't want it. Your animals won't do anything with it if you have animals that usually eat it.
But okay, so I did want to show one more picture of it. This time of year, in the winter time, you'll see these clusters that a lot of people call the bird's nest. These are actually those umbels dried up, and they have the seeds in there. Those seeds can stick to clothing slightly, but not too bad. Some people actually use the seeds like caraway seeds for seasoning. That was the other thing, but they're a little bitter.
Yeah, it's similar. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Carrot seeds are pretty small, so they're hard to.
and that's another plant in the same family, the caraway. So yeah, the biggest thing here is we haven't harvested it mainly because we could grow our own carrots and they'll have bigger roots and we'll use those or we'll get them from local farms. We've had some bad luck in growing carrots recently, but
Carrots
this last
are
season,
generally hardy, but they can be a little particular.
sometimes if it gets too hot too fast or whatever. So we don't usually go foraging for wild carrot. But the other thing is you have to be like 110% sure that it's a wild carrot because of the fact that there's that look-alike. Although there are major differences, at glance, poison hemlock will kill you. So you do not want to mix that one up.
Yeah, so that's even like our foraging instructor Nabi, she doesn't even deal with it. One, because I don't think it interests her, and if it doesn't interest her for food, she doesn't care. But also, I think she's very concerned to.
She doesn't teach it. I have heard her say she eats wild carrot.
I think she's concerned
she doesn't
about
teach it.
Yeah, because of
people getting
so
mixed up.
It's really good for working with people that have poor eyesight or kids or things to make sure that they can distinguish for themselves 100%. So you don't get them, get somebody in trouble grabbing stuff. And once the flower is gone and you pull the root, then who knows? Looks like another white root. They're not By the way, they are not orange or yellow.
Can
The
you
purple
domesticate?
roots.
Oh yes, Roy. Yes, we did a talk on chicory,
Yeah, you
wild
could definitely
chicory.
domesticate chicory.
It's called Belgian endive.
Well, it's just called that. There's
Endive.
all kinds of chicories and endives.
Yeah, endive is a chicory.
Belgian
So
endive is the sprout after
yeah, the
you cut it
sprout.
off. But yeah, you have all kinds of things from the chicory family, starting with dandelions through. Italy loves to eat bitter chicories.
Huh.
You can find a list of probably 20 different chicories that are used for salads or braising that have been differentiated and domesticated. The Castelfranco is one of my favorite. It's a beautiful and fairly mild chicory.
So there were some other discussions in there, but I did want to say, as far as medicinal uses, I have not double checked on any of them. But as far as traditional uses and nutritional uses, wild carrot has the leaves, by the way, which you don't like to eat, are some of the highest sources of calcium of any vegetable at 450 milligrams per 100 grams fresh.
I'll select a cow vegetable.
Cow
A piece of
vegetable.
cheese.
That sounds good to me.
Actually, there's a lot of calcium in greens. I want
Yeah,
to
there is.
say in the kales and the dark leafy greens have a high level of plant-based calcium. So again, I'll select those over carrot.
But they're not
But
quite as high.
I like carrot roots. I just
Yeah. Wild carrots are full of flavonoids, and so are regular domestic carrots. And those are basically antioxidants, which are protective on multiple levels. Traditionally, there have been people who use a poultice of the root for skin infections, and then using the seeds and or leaves as a diuretic in teas. So you can use those in teas as well. And urinary antiseptic, carminative, and digestive.
I love cheese. No, it's arc.
I love cheese too. I'll get my calcium that way. Thanks. No.
we've the current in the winter person across from me at the farmers market has a nice goat herd, and they make goat cheese fresh and aged, and they also source grass-fed cow's milk in the winter because they have a cheese production plant, and so they're doing some cow cheeses, also aged artisan cow cheeses, and so I've bought a little bit and I've been given a little bit, so we've been eating. Got some nice. There's some local cheese, but not a lot. There should be more in our area. New York, there was a lot. In the whole New York Vermont deal, there's cheese has really exploded. It's been a little slower here.
Wisconsin.
But there's good cheese to be found.
And ask the chef. Well, this is tonight's dinner. So if your mom's still around, we had the same dinner. Although you had duck breast, we had the whole duck with cranberry sauce and Brussels sprouts and our sourdough bread just made today. So very yummy. But
yeah, it was kind of I always liked duck, and there've been some talk about
crispy skin duck. I love.
But I was running through Aldi's buying a couple of vegetables that I couldn't get at the market, and
which you probably could have gotten at the market.
Well, the Brussels sprouts I could have, but they were a good buy. So anyways, I was buying some. Actually, I was looking for carrots and celery at one point, and they had neither carrots nor celery.
Which is odd.
Well, I understand celery because it may not move fast enough, but for them to be out of carrots, it probably wasn't a good purchase price on it. So they had frozen ducks at it was like $13 for a frozen duck. And so that's kind of wholesale pricing in that range, $10 to $13. So I'm sure it was after Christmas overstock. And so I grabbed one because I'm like, well, geez, that's a good deal. So you do need almost a whole duck for two people. It's a generous portion, but not overly generous. So I decided to just do standard roasted duck. Thawed it out a couple of days and threw it in the oven, and then put the Brussels sprouts with that. And had the homemade cranberry sauce has been sitting around in the fridge. And so, made that into a kind of a throw together dinner.
Yeah. So, and Carrie happened to ask on our Facebook page when I started asking for questions for the segment. She goes, "How do you cook skinless duck breast?" Because she got some on sale. It looked like.
Oh, Noah's Ark, as far as goat cheese, is really strong.
Not always.
Yeah. So, fresh goat cheese tends to be pretty strong and sour.
Yeah.
That sourness is also lactobacillus. The same thing in sourdough and in yogurt and in a variety of basically kimchi and sauerkraut and all those things are all based off of the lactobacillus, and the byproduct of breaking down the sugars and the lactose is lactic acid. Lactic acid is sour. However, so goat cheese is always done through the lactobacillus process. So it's going to be sour when it's fresh. If you start doing a semi-aged or a heavily aged, you'll find that sourness dissipates and other flavors take over. So a great example is go find goat jack. It'll be a piece about, it'll be round. It'll be a round loaf about this size, maybe 6, 7, 8 inches around. You obviously don't have to buy the whole thing.
Look like in a sausage casing type, sausage, like Bob Evans sausage type thing. No, like the shape of the case of the piece.
It's a round.
That's a round too. The round ones that you pull off the breakfast sausages. It's a round casing. You don't even know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't think it's this
big.
It's
a tube, like this long.
No, this is a round that's like this long and that thick.
Yeah.
I don't think it's related. Okay. But anyways, so that is a long age kind of white cheese. They make really nice ones out of California and also Spain and other places. You'll find that something in that style is not sour and is really rich, and you may like it, you may not. So
anyway, so yes, we
did double our subscribership. We have a giveaway running. If you see today's video that just released this afternoon, and we did have a great time with them. Had a lot of fun. We worked really hard, and
very busy weekend.
Yeah, look up California Goat Jack and some of the other. I mean, Jack is a style of cheddar or chattered cheese, so it's a turned cheese. So don't get too excited about the whole Jack cheddar thing, but it's good.
Yeah. So back to Carrie's question: how do you cook boneless, skinless duck breast?
First of all, I can't believe you found that. I don't know if I've ever seen boneless, skinless duck breast. So duck breast is very common. It almost always has skin. In fact, it has a generous overlapping fat. Duck breasts are 3/4 of an inch thick, roughly, on these ducklings. They're anywhere, or maybe up to an inch thick, depending on the age of it. Yeah. They're kind of more rectangular, and so they don't have the chicken breast heart shape with the thick top, the lobe top, and the and then they have this really thick 1/4 inch thick skin that overhangs. Well, the skin is so tasty, and the fat and the skin, if you prepare it right, it's almost always there. So for them to remove it is almost, I've never seen that. I'm sure they're trying to compete with boneless, skinless chicken breast. It's 100% protein. It's actually leaner than chicken and it has more minerals. So I would be challenged and probably would not buy it, although I did see the 25% off, so that is a good reason to buy it.
You'd have to do something moist.
My concern is there's almost no fat, so it'll dry out whether you're stewing it or you're pan searing, baking it, because you need the protective layer of that skin, whether you eat it or not, or you render it down and then you eat crispy skin.
Yeah.
Goat meat in gyros. No, that's usually a lamb blend. You could. It's usually lamb or a lamb beef combo. It's a 2 or 3 meat blend, and your traditional gyro meat, not goat.
Yeah. Anyway, back to duck.
Yeah. So what I would do is either maybe brine it, do a quick salt brine for half a day or overnight, and then I would dry it off and I would pan sear it in a smoking hot pan with some oil. Just brown each side, leaving it rare in the middle, and I would slice it very thin and serve it rare. If you serve it rare or medium rare, the juiciness and tenderness from not tensing up the lean muscle will make it not too chewy and edible. However, not everybody likes it that way. If you cook it any more than medium rare, it will begin to get very tough because it's a little more mature than a chicken breast. So you could slice it very thin and stir fry it, marinate it and stir fry it.
You can cook duck breast, duck rare, and when you can't cook chicken rare. So they don't have the same issues there.
Health department's still going to tell you to cook
Any rare meat is
cook it done, but that is acceptable in restaurants and other places to cook it under. And so what you can do, I mean, you can basically not cook it. too. So what you can do is if they're not raised with poultry at all, or or with chickens, so they are not as susceptible to the same issues.
Save the fat, make duck.
Yeah,
frites.
exactly. You say the fat make duck frites. So the
Duck
fat's
fat's
the most
yum.
important thing in many ways.
Yeah.
So that lean breast is difficult. Now you might be able to do it a
Coffee?
stir fry. It'd still be. You could slow oil cook it, bathed in oil, very very slow to keep it from tensing up, but it could still end up getting dry.
Yeah.
But you could probably do that. You could.
If you cook it like a steak, I think it'll get way too chewy.
Well, you can cook it like a steak, but you cook
If
it
it's
to
rare.
medium rare,
Yeah,
rare-ish.
yeah.
So yeah, that would be. So I'll tell you the way I usually cook duck breast is you trim up that skin just a little bit, but leaving it overlapping because it'll shrink down a lot. And you either make very thin score marks all in one direction, like say every 1/4 inch or less, or you do a crosshatch pattern and you just break the skin. You don't go all the way through the fat. You just break the skin with a sharp knife, and that allows the fat to purge out of the skin easier. And then I get a pan, a cast iron pan or just a steel pan, just barely rub a little oil in there, not much at all. And then I turn the pan on medium and I put the duck breast in with it barely warm, just so it won't stick. And then I let it go on medium, medium high, and it will render down so the fat will slowly purge out and the skin will become crispy until you've gotten all the way crispy and brown. And then I'll season the meat side, which is facing up, and I'll just flip it over. By that time, the pan's turned up to is all the way gone hot. I'll flip it over in a hot pan, and I'll just sear the meat side very briefly, a minute or two, and take it all off, and that's it. And serve it again towards the meat, definitely on the medium rare side. Typically slice it either across, or I like to slice it long way. That's an old style way, nice thin, and it will come out really, really tasty.
We have other questions too, so should probably get off the duck topic for a bit. We had a question from Joel. I don't know if he's in the room right now, but how do you balance kitchen life with homestead life?
It's impossible.
I do most of the homestead stuff.
Yeah, I'm not cooking. So now I have my own business that's
a little easier.
Over a year into startup, so I don't have a lot of staff, but I'm pretty much operating out of the house, which cuts down some of those activities, but I'm still doing a lot of work in the house, and then I'm out doing deliveries and clients and other things. So it still takes almost as much time. I'm just a little more centrally located. Yeah, running a full-scale kitchen life and running a kitchen, not just working shifts, which is pretty much full-time all the time, and you're on call all the time. The problem with the farm is that may not be your whole day's work, but you're on call all the time, and there's busy times when you need to do things, or you have sick animals or broken things, where you really have to stop and focus on that for a period of hours or days. So those are two similar activities, and putting the two together isn't very easy unless you do it with a team of people.
Yeah.
So.
And there's a couple questions came up here. How much time do you recommend each side of the duck without tensing the muscle?
I would do it so that you're probably getting an internal temperature of about 130 to 135. But I would start with that medium hot pan with the skin side down, and I would just watch it. And that might be 6, 7, 8 minutes because we're on a medium heat, turning up to higher heat as we go. As that oil purges off, the duck fat, I pour it off into a container. Too much oil will get kind of frying and brown the edges. So I just keep pouring it off when it gets too greasy. When I flip it over, it's not more than 2 minutes unless I'm going towards medium. I'm really, somebody called it, I saw it on a cooking show, they called it unilateral cooking. And they put a piece of something on one side, so it was basically cooked on one side and raw on the other. I'm like, well, that's a poor excuse for technique. I don't think they executed very well on that show. So it is sort of a form of lopsided cooking, which on a steak you get a floating or drifting center where you could have a medium rare, but it's way up here, way down there, because you spent a lot of time on one
One
side
side.
and you didn't even it on the other side. That's okay with fish and duck where you have a protective layer like skin. You want to spend most of the time, 80% of the time, cooking on that skin layer, and then you get it flipped over just to sear it off for 20% of the time, and then you're done. So.
And what is the best way to do whole stuffed goose? Which we have a Christmas series. We didn't do
Yeah.
stuffed.
No,
but we did.
Didn't we?
Did we stuff
We
the
made
goose?
a stuff. Well, my original, not my original version, which was based off of that one years ago. We didn't do a video.
Okay.
I made a stuffing, but I'm not sure I stuffed it.
You can check out the Christmas videos from a year
Yeah,
ago.
I would
It's a
say
whole
the
series.
stuffing it isn't a bad deal. Unlike a turkey, which is so much bigger, a goose roasts for a
Cattails.
long time. So if you stuff it, you have a better chance of the stuffing getting fully cooked. You do need to bring the center to 165. Now you don't get as even cooking, so you may choose to make a dressing on the side and not stuff it. What you can do is put in basic vegetables, onions, carrots, celery, or shallots, or oranges, or herbs, things like that. Ginger in the center. Don't stuff it full, so you still get airflow and you can get some flavoring, and you'll dump that stuff out later and kind of throw it away, and then do a regular straight roasting. Probably around 350, convection oven 325, and you could be on a goose good 2.5 hours. You do cook it almost, it's hard because the legs need to get soft. You're going to cook it all the way well done. Your meat's going to be almost 185, and the legs, when you grab them, good way to tell on a duck or a goose, when you grab the legs and you move them, they should start releasing. Instead, they'll be really tense, and then you'll feel that they're kind of loosening up. You don't, and that's a good indication that you've broken down the meat and got it hot enough that it's going to be tender. Do want to give it a really good dose of salt, because that helps draw out the fat, and you need a lot of salt on these fatty birds to let it penetrate.
Noah's Ark is full of jokes here. Their muscles get tense from running from the butcher.
I wasn't the butcher, so I don't know.
Or did they lift weights? You're throwing those questions out. Okay, MG Ibarra. How is your greenhouse doing?
It's all done.
It is all done. We need to set up for growing soon. Didn't have time this weekend, so since I work full time, he has his own business. That'll probably be a weekend job. But I do need to start some seeds here. I do have a book I follow, and some onion seeds and such need to start, and I want to start some greens. Some of those will start inside, some of them will start in the greenhouse. But the cold hardy greens can grow out there. It was in the 60s in our greenhouse today, and it was in the 20s outside, but it was very sunny. The one thing we're doing, we're at our lows at night, our greenhouse is staying probably about 10 degrees above our lows.
Yeah, not much. We're still losing some heat.
Well, yeah, and we're going to lose some heat. It's plastic,
and it's taller than a low tunnel, but yeah.
But we got to see.
We're getting benefits. I think we can continue to improve it a little bit. Yeah. But if we get too thermal, we're gonna have problems when it's sunny out. We got to get a vent, and self-venting. Temperature venting hatches are ridiculously expensive unless somebody wants to throw out a link for the temperature piston or full built vent window that because a full window is $150 to $200 with a heat piston on it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back. Yeah, we got to work on venting. We do have the window. At this time of year, if it gets hot enough in our greenhouse, we could actually open the windows into the house.
Will there be an update? Yes. So there was an update on the greenhouse one at yesterday?
A couple days ago.
Last section, there'll be some notes on parts and specs and where you can obtain some of those. And yeah, as Cindy gets it set up and starts planning things, there'll be at least some short updates of what's going on in there.
And there's going to be some growing videos in there and all of that.
So yeah, the main project's fully up in 4 parts, and you'll see some light updates.
Yep.
And we may do some additional adjustments that we'll just kind of poke in if we've made an adjustment to it.
Yeah, sure. And we'll keep that going. So the series I'll keep adding to it basically, but the 4 building parts are basically done. Another question was from Tina. Tina just ordered vanilla beans to make extract, and she said, guess the question. Tina, did you have a specific question on your vanilla beans if you're still in here?
Yeah, is it what to do with the extract or how to make the extract? Or
yeah. So I'll just throw that out while we
I'll
go.
tell you, I'm not a big fan of going to make extract specifically because
Thanks,
it's
Suburban.
so costly. A number of years ago when I was in school, it was still very expensive, but
Yeah.
you could buy like half a pound or a pound of beans, and you basically shove them in a pint of rum or vodka or whatever your choice was to create the bourbon or the bourbon blend. That you would then pour off, you would open up the beans, you pour it off. Now, pastry chefs will scrape out the beans when they need to. They'll scrape into things where they can't use the whole thing. Now, typically, I steep it in milk or in simple syrup or something where the steeping will take the flavor because the bean has as much flavor as, or the outer shell has as much flavor as the bean. So typically, I only use whole beans
How to make it.
where I'm going to be steeping it, and then I'll leave it in there as long as I can until I have to pull it out of the custard mix or whatever. So that doesn't really leave much left. But if, say, you're scraping vanilla beans just to put it into something, you can take the pod, and then you can either put it in a sugar or into simple syrup or into alcohol, and you can extract the remaining flavor by just leaving it there. So for vanilla bean, or so for extract, I would. This is funny. Somebody told. So a lot of the Italian desserts use rum. Well, I said, well, the rum comes from the Caribbean. The Italians like the Caribbean better than France, where you'd use brandy, or you could use neutral white, alcohol vodka or whatever. Yeah. So you take a neutral alcohol of your choosing. It doesn't need to be anything crazy good. Just something kind of. It's just the alcohol and the water will do the extraction, and you're going to just keep filling that up with all your leftover beans. But unless you're in a pastry shop, I don't think you're going to have that many. Or you put a whole bunch of them in there, and then you're just going to decant off a little bit at a time, and you can keep filling it with beans until it's full, and then probably finish it out. Now, I think that commercial producers, because they'll take all the off beans that don't look so good, aren't perfect, they're going to make vanilla products with that. I think their opportunity to do it at a better value is so much more so than you're going to ever be able to do at home, that I would just buy traditional natural vanilla extract from somebody else. You can also buy vanilla paste, which has the beans in it and is thickened, lightly thickened, so it's like a gel, which makes it easier to measure. And so I kind of like using that sometimes, and because it does have the beans in it. But vanilla sugar is a good one. You can just take a small container of sugar, make sure it's airtight, Tupperware container or whatever. Yeah. Put in regular old white sugar, granular sugar.
She's thinking about using Bacardi.
Yeah, that's fine. Bacardi's, just white Bacardi rum is perfectly fine. That would be a very acceptable, quality level for something like that. I think even you could go a step below that. I wouldn't go to the I guess there's no reason ever to buy the cheapest available liquor of any type because it's questionable what they've done to it, but anything. But so yeah, you can stick it in just regular white granular sugar, airtight, throw a few beans in, and it will transfer flavor into the sugar, and then you can dust the sugar on top of things, or you can whip it into a frosting, but again, you need a reasonable amount.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are pretty good uses for it.
Yeah. And just to keep us moving here, we also have a question from Anita from Homestead Evolution, who also has AJ Farms, which is funny because your question is very much about your farm and what you sell on there.
Favorite Costco vanilla, yeah, that's what I'm currently using. Costco natural vanilla. I bought it a year or two ago. Bought a big one before the prices spiked, and I've been happy with it. I don't know exactly where they've sourced it, but at the moment that is my current vanilla, and I don't use a lot at home, but that's what I'm using.
Yeah. So, question here. What is your favorite dish to make with quail or quail eggs, and why?
Well, there's two that I kind of keep going back to. I do like quail quite a bit. I've gone through hundreds, if not thousands, of quail in restaurants and hotels. Most of them we get glove bones, so they're already cleaned out. I have cleaned out 200 or 300 where I have glove bones. So glove bone means you go and you take out all the rib bones. Okay. So you're left with just the 2 wing bones or 3 wing bones and the 2 leg bones. So you're semi-boneless, which means you can serve it whole, or you can cut it in half and grill it, and somebody can gnaw on it, have some little handles, but not feel like they're going to choke on anything. So that is the preferred way to cook with it, and you can buy them pre-done a lot of times. I like to brine them a little bit, and one of my favorite is using like a cinnamon stick brine, herbs and cinnamon stick, and then smoking it. So brine, smoke, sometimes put a little glaze on it. So that's really good. I've done Asian ones where we do kind of a sweet soy brine, so the sweetness in the brine really almost starts to candy the quail, and then when you pan sear it and crisp it off, it gets really brown from those soy notes and the sweetness in it. I have done tequila and honey brines. A lot of times it seems like it adds sweet things and get this sweet caramelization activity. They taste like chicken, but just a little more robust, but not quite as meaty as duck. Yeah, they're much smaller. So one quail is a really nice appetizer because, half one would be really small. One's a good appetizer. Two's a nice entree. They're small. It would be 3. But I don't usually serve them as entrees because putting 2 birds on a plate, let alone 3, looks kind of funny. So I think they make for really good appetizers. Now you can do them in little quarters or sections. You can deep fry them, by the way, a light brine, and then you can do a crispy fried. And then the other thing we've done,
I saw that, Tina.
the other thing we've done is cornbread stuffing. So you make cornbread, tear it up, put in celery and herbs and spices, and they're small enough you can stuff them and keep them tender. And so you can do some little stuffed guys. And that works nice because if you're doing, say, stuffed, there's more portion there, or you do a duet where you have a quail plus something.
Yeah, and there's a lot of channels right now who are raising quail.
A lot of people raising quail.
So
they like them. They make little funny noises, and they're little and silly.
And they're little, and they grow fast, and they give you eggs all the time, and they give you meat, little bits of meat.
Yeah, they're very efficient. The kids can work with them.
They're easy, and they don't eat a lot.
Again, you can undercook them because unless you put them in with your chickens, they don't have the salmonella issues and some of those issues of undercooked chicken. So they're kind of a game bird, but because they're domestic, I don't put them in the game bird category flavor-wise at all.
Yeah, Tina, I have just my one black
I've
kitty.
used a lot of quail eggs. We've done little fried quail eggs and poached quail eggs. Deviled quail eggs, done them as appetizers, done them as garnish.
And someone
they're nice on a little salad, a little poached quail egg.
Yeah, someone answered the question about 4 to 5 eggs per quail eggs to a chicken egg.
It's a lot.
Yeah, they're tiny.
It's a lot. The nice little speckled color. Now, eggs for most of your poultry don't really taste any different. Texture can be slightly different, but I find a quail egg, other than it's very small, doesn't greatly differ from the presentation of a chicken egg in flavor and texture. So I don't think anybody would have a problem eating them that doesn't, that likes regular chicken eggs.
And there's one other question here from Jennifer, unless I have to go back and look again. Jennifer said she ended up with a cow heart steaks when she picked up her half cow, and she wants to know how to prepare them.
So steaks, I'm guessing they're cross-cut, or
they must be cross-cut, I guess.
So typically, what the heart's about this big. It's I don't know.
It's pretty big.
It's pretty big, and so it's got some fat on the outside, which is a good fat. You want to keep it on there. Whether some people roast them, otherwise you can split them down the middle, open them up, roll them out kind of like a book. You're gonna have some big arteries and stuff in there. You're gonna cut those. Are gonna be cut out because they're just really tough. And people are like, I don't want to eat that anyways. And then you have some little fibrous things that connect it, and those are usually trimmed out. So it might be possible that they open it up almost, I don't know, I think about like a big calamari, supersized calamari, just like that. You open it out, they probably cut it into 3 pieces, and they're calling it a steak. I think you've got a very imaginative butcher. They could have cross-cut it, but they're not very imaginative. Yeah, you'd have all the holes in it. They're very unimaginative unless they think it's a Swiss cheese steak.
But you ground some.
Yeah, so your options are just like the duck. It is super high protein, almost no fat, and it will get really tough. It'll get tougher than the duck if you cook it for more than a little bit. So what you need to do is, whatever you're doing, sear it very quickly on very high heat, smoking
We
hot.
sliced them.
Yeah, and then you don't want to, regardless of how you slice it, you don't want to overcook it. Try and keep it medium rare, and then and present it. So you could do it as a steak. I just don't think that's great. Other options are you can cut it into strips and do like a fajita or a stir fry, very thin, as thin as you can do it. But again, smoking hot pan, whether it's in a little marinade or soy or whatever it is, just get it in the pan enough to brown it and get it right out and serve it. Yeah, heart tacos, so you can braise it. So the alternative is you can braise it and simmer it in flavorful liquid for 3 or 4 hours or whatever it takes till it breaks down and starts to get tender. It will still have a chew to it. I mean, don't cook it till it falls apart. It'll get weird, but you'll have to cook it for a long time. So heart can be put into almost any of your stews. You can cube it up into smaller pieces. You can put it into your stews. Steak and kidney pie. It's not uncommon to put heart into steak and kidney pie. In fact, I'm about ready to write a recipe that was missing that I was going to put into into our packet for steak and kidney pie. I meant to put it in, I didn't. So you can bury it in any of, especially something like that. We've got different textures and good meaty flavors. The kidney is going to be stronger than anything else in there, so don't worry about the heart. And then, yeah, you can grind it because it's rich and deep in flavor and a little minerals, not strong but rich and dark red. You can grind it, and we cut some of it at the Rhodes 50-50 with the ground beef. Yeah. And we made some little patties, but I also suggested on that heart jerky, I think it might be too tough and dry. You could try it. If you do a sweet and salty marinade, and cut it really thin, but I'm not certain it's going to come out amazing. Typically, you use like top round and shoulder, and you use tender things for jerky and you cross cut on the grain.
It's a smooth muscle, so it's a little different texture.
It's different. I am not sure about that one, but you could try it. And then moose heart would be awesome. I'm sure it'd be just much bigger and probably be a ton of fun. So yeah, you could. So you can grind it, and we did a 50-50 grind blend. And it's perfect for chili because you need that really deep, rich, meaty flavor when you put all the spices on. It would be excellent for that. You could make taco meat type things. And yeah, if you're grinding even further, Detroit hot dogs traditionally had a lot of heart in them. And because it was inexpensive, people think it's gross, but think about the deep, meaty flavors, a nice snap and chew. And it's perfect for going in a Frankfurter style emulsified sausage. So if you're going to make Frankfurters, going from raw, you could do that. I think even just dicing in really small cubes, cooking it super hot with jalapenos and cilantro and raw onions like taco style would be phenomenal. You can do that with a lot of meats and just go hard and fast and brown and get it right out and then throw all your fresh stuff in there.
What would you braise it in?
Any flavorful liquid. So a beef broth ideally with some just 1 carrot, a piece of celery, half an onion, bay leaf, thyme, parsley, and then I would simmer it in that. If you don't have that, you can use chicken stock or just a flavorful water base. You could put a drop of Worcestershire sauce or soy in. You could put a little bit of beer if you wanted. I mean, there's braising is all about it's flavorful liquid. So whatever you put in, don't make it too strong because it'll reduce. And
thanks, Mike. Pick the fence. Yeah. So, and Noah's Ark, I keep laughing at your comments. So, heart tacos for Valentine's Day.
Sounds good. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we'd have to go find ourselves some heart. Maybe we could do a heart.
St. Kelly, the local Mexicans used heart for tacos and made mayo.
Yeah.
Made a mayo sauce with it, like an ale. Yeah, I'm sure they did. That sounds good to me. Braising, hearty hot dogs. White Picket Fence has the in with Justin, I guess. We were impressed with what he's doing.
He's got a lot on his plate.
We already knew it, but they're the real deal. They're what you see on they do things off time because they're only half farm and half editing, and they got family, but they're it's pretty much showing what you see is what you got there, and they're a big channel, but they're just a normal family.
Thanks, Suburban, for posting some of our links there. You can find these links in our description below as well. The one you just posted is for Mike's business,
Yeah,
which
we didn't do any recipes of heart and pasta, did
no, we
we? I'm
didn't.
sure I could figure something out.
He has a pasta business. That's what he's
I
doing from
just
home.
got asked to do a
Pork.
February dinner. It's pork and pasta.
Yeah.
Is what, and so this it's called All Star Chefs. I think it's the biggest chef dinner in town through the year. I did it 2 years ago. And
is it a fundraiser dinner or is
no,
it just
it's a beautiful idea. So all these specialty dinners. So there's 8 chefs are handpicked that are notable, and we each do a course. We're assigned a course and sometimes a theme, and local people sign up. There's a long waiting list, and they pay a reasonable amount of money to be there, and then they do wine pairing. So it's at a nice restaurant in town. Well, it turns out, so most of these things would be for a big charitable, you're doing a big tasting dinner. Yeah. Well, it started, I think, 20 some years ago. 2 owners, brothers, right? Chef owners, and they run front and back of house, both chef trained. And they decided to throw a party for one of the brothers' birthdays.
Okay.
And so I'd heard the story. I thought it was, and so we're going to invite over our friends. We're going to each cook. We're going to cook dinner. We're going to pay for everything. We're going to have a great time, and we're going to invite some people over to share it with us. Yeah. And maybe we'll make enough money just to cover costs. So
it turned into
it started out like that. And from the way I heard, people were like, why would we go to a dinner where a bunch of chefs are cooking whatever they want? We have no idea what they're cooking. And, why would we pay for that? That's how it started 25 years ago. It's such a sellout crowd that I think year to year, if you're on the list,
there's a wait list.
Yeah, there's a long wait list. And they max out 100 and 150, whatever. I think it's over 100 people for it. Fill the whole place. And they change up the chefs and the courses. And so there is no fundraiser. It is simply a celebration of chef's birthday, and people get to get a little bit of a vision of what chefs like to do and how they like to celebrate and how they like to prepare food when there is no guideline. And they do wine pairings. They brew their own beer, and they do a really nice wine pairing for everything. And after that's all done, they kind of do it early on a Sunday, so it finishes up like 8-ish, not all night. And then they repeat the whole meal for the, say, 30 or so chefs, staff, and a guest. And they repeat everything, because why would we want to cook all night, if it was somebody's birthday? So we get to relive it and experience it with some of the staff, put up most of the courses after that. So we have kind of a late night dinner. And so I did it 2 years ago, and I really think it's the best deal. Right. Yeah, why wouldn't you want to pay for it? That's what I'd say. So it's the closest thing to when we were in New York, and things I did with the clubs and the specialty dinners that you get in big cities, which happen all the time, where you do pop-up dinners, or you just come in and chef's going to cook, and maybe you know a little bit about the meal, but you let them, because most of the time the owners, the clients, the market, the menu dictates most of what we do. You don't have a lot of free expression to be creative and show people new things or what you like to do. So that's what it is. I think it's the best dinner in town probably all year. Yeah. And really excited. We were at the Rhodes Saturday night. Friday night, I got an email saying, hey, you want to come do this, and we'd love to have you do pork and pasta course.
Which is funny. We keep getting, this was supposed to be a slow season. January, February for business.
I thought it was going to be a lot of projects, and I'm booked for 3 months solid right now.
We're invited to the Rhodes. We're going to go back to the Rhodes later, which will come out it came out on our last live show, but it'll come out in more detail when Justin makes the official announcements of it. So another project with him. We have and the Hollers, I think, are going to be recording that one too.
I'm pretty sure. I'm guessing.
So that'll be fun to see everybody again.
Yeah, so we'll all be back. We all get along really well.
Yeah, they're great.
It's fun. So.
And then
we're the little guys around there. They're all the big shots. So.
Well, the Hollers have grown over this last year with their traveling a lot on their channel.
And they've got a whole format with finding a home and building on a home. They got 5 more years of stuff at least ready to go.
Oh yeah, right. And then you have this big chef dinner coming up. We have a big There's a fundraiser thing that we're going to have a pasta booth at.
Yeah, there's a
So
local fundraiser coming
yeah,
up in a couple of weeks.
so
That's a
it's
big
filling up.
community wine tasting. We did it last year. We're going to do that. So we're just a contributor and a purveyor. So
Hmm.
we're providing some pasta tastes and such.
Yep.
Yeah, don't know what I'm going to do for that pork and pasta. I've kind of narrowed down the pasta ideas and kind of where I'm going, but I want to be fun and inventive and a little bit modern. But because I've done so much with pork, heritage pork and pork fabrication, I want to that's where I want to present some more edgy or traditional uses, some offcuts. So I've been thinking about how I'm gonna handle that. I'm looking for a few things, and yeah,
Yep.
so that's so we're working on how that's all going to come together. But I'm going to keep very maybe modern in presentation, classical in preparation, and of course a little homesteady edgy with what we do with the
Some
pork. We
protein.
don't want to upset anybody or create anything that people go, oh, that's kind of nasty. But I want to put out things people go,
That
oh
are
my
new.
gosh, that's really good, or I had no idea, I've never had that item or how it was prepared. So
Yeah. So delt the haulers fix the truck? I believe they fixed the was it
well,
the the which line did
they
they
blew
blow?
a belt or they
It
blew
was the
a
it was the
hose.
power
Yes,
steering hose.
power steering hose. They think they need
A new pump.
yeah, a new pump, which they were talking about doing
Yeah.
sooner than later. It's probably in process because it's not
Yeah.
the hugest repair around, and they'll do that themselves, I think.
So I know they replaced the hose, so they were driving it, but they said the
Last I
pump's
saw
probably gone.
early in the week, it was
Yeah.
hard steering, and obviously they're gonna,
Yeah.
which is probably why the pump was stressed in blue. So they're gonna be
Yeah.
doing that. Spiralize bacon. Well, a pancetta
Yeah.
is a
It's
round, can
basically.
be prepared round or flat. So
Yep.
yeah,
And you've done that a few times too.
making
Well,
the pork, making the pork into. I could make
make the
yeah, I
pork
could
into
put pork
pasta.
into pasta. Pork is so versatile. It's trying to figure out. So I got some pretty good ideas what I think I want to do, but
Yeah.
I'm figuring that out and then building into the schedule. I don't have any prep crew, so whatever I do, I need to make the pasta. I need to make all the garnishes and pork accompaniments,
So
sauce related things. I've got to do all that.
who's gonna be your assistant at that? Doesn't the assistant usually make the dish for the chefs when the
No,
chefs
well, what
eat?
happens is so some people bring in assistants. So this is a neat deal that you've got 8 chefs plus their crew.
Yeah.
So you've got the two, the head chefs and then their key crew. But you also have sometimes an assistant from somebody else or some culinary students or
All
other
right.
people
Okay.
that tend to show up and hang out. Again, it's like big city. We don't get to do these big city things where the chefs want to all hang out.
Yeah.
So they do the plate out. So you basically instruct the plate up, you get it ready, set it, you show them how to do it, and then you watch the plates go out, which is also big city, and we don't get to do around here too much. It's not the most fun, but you actually, you watch that each plate looks correct, that you wipe the plate, that it's presented right, or you put the garnish on it. And that's in a really fine dining or European style fine dining restaurant. The chef doesn't cook much. They're checking they're checking and touching, literally touching each plate to make sure that everything's okay because their mark, if they're famous, their mark is on it and they don't want anything to go out that's wrong. So you do that, and then we get an opportunity after the course is out to take a walk around and answer questions and see people. But we have enough of a crew that we all kind of chip in and putting the courses out. But when we go to have our dinner, they use their staff has to keep a keen eye and keep enough product back to accommodate the 25 or 30 people. And yeah, not quite Gordon Ramsay style, but so yes, but that is a classical traditional kitchen style. As American chefs, we tend to be very, very hands-on working chefs, which means we're actually putting out fires and degreasing things and solving problems and doing specialty things. We don't spend a lot of time standing at the front pointing. That's whether people want to or not want to do that. Most of us don't get paid for that.
No.
So.
And I was, oh shoot, there was something else I was going to ask, but it is getting late, and I have to go to work tomorrow morning.
I gotta go to work tomorrow too. I got tons of stuff to do.
You have to stay to work, you mean?
I gotta go downstairs to work.
So
yeah, I got a lot of orders I gotta do tomorrow. I'm teaching a couple classes this week.
Yeah, at the
So I'm
community
teaching a
college.
class on pasta it's a community class at the community college, an evening class.
Yeah.
So I'm teaching a whirlwind 2.5 hour class, and then I need to help a number of culinary instructors teach some medical students the following day. So 2 days out of my week this week are away from my projects and are doing things with the community college culinary program. So
Yeah.
which I like doing, but I have to juggle in my orders and deliveries and other activities so that everything's in good shape.
Oh, I did want to say something else to you guys. Down below, I have a website that's listed. It's called Kit. So you can see a link. It's basically where different people have these. I think Justin Rhodes has one. I think that's where I learned of it. But you can set up different things that you use often. And I do have a new addition to the foraging books, and it's not technically a foraging book, but I listed it in there. It's actually a wildflower guide, so it is something that if I was looking at, it has black and white drawings, but good descriptions of different wildflowers across North America. It's Newcomb's Wildflower Guide. So if you take a look at my kit below in the description, it'll link. Um, we have a bunch of different sections, and one of them is for foraging. I do have this book linked in that section if you guys are interested in foraging things. So I forgot to mention that earlier. Did want to bring that up if you're interested. But we should
Yeah,
close
we're
out.
pretty much Valerie D is heading out for the night.
Yes, good.
We'll work on a kit probably coming up here on some butchering supplies and
Yeah,
resources. Um, so a couple of things on that project are still in process. So I wrote a pretty large manual and curriculum for the beef butchering. We're cleaning that up a little bit, and we're going to make that available as part of the Justin Rhodes video series, the Master Butchering video series.
yeah.
He's going to include that packet with the
With it.
video. Um, we might make that packet available in some other source. We're kind of working on that
Yeah.
as an introduction to homestead butchering and understanding your meat and things like that. It's got some recipes and other things. So that is coming out of hopefully some final edits and not too long. Just so that's working. We may put together a butchery packet of resources and information. Oh, that packet that we produced has a lot of books. Probably has 8 or 9 books that I recommend as excellent sources
Mm-hmm.
for cutting, preparing,
And we'll have to put that in a kit
cooking.
too.
Yeah, so we have book sources, which are easy to get a handle on. Probably some equipment sources, and some of them might be affiliate links, but most of them are just really where to go find what I think is reasonable equipment or possibly reasonable, decent prices, reputable sellers that I've used.
Yeah, and by the way, that I just posted a link to the video that will be coming out on the beef butchery. That is an affiliate link to that video. If
Oh yeah,
anybody's
yeah.
interested in that, I just put that in the
Justin
chat.
was gracious to give us an
An
affiliate
affiliate.
link. So if you're interested in that material and you buy it through the affiliate link, he's gracious enough to give us a small portion of the proceeds of that project, which is great. The other thing that's working is a tentative early March date for a hog project, similar to the beef but unique to pork. And so we're involved in that. We're doing a
Yep.
similar activity. I find pork a lot easier to manage both in cost and size to beef, and I find it a lot more versatile in cooking. So the challenge is what do you make, and all the myriad of things and processes is probably the fun part of it. Beef, it's about how do I handle all this
It's
product.
weight.
It's expensive. I don't want to lose it. It's heavy. It's a lot of work. There are some things I can make with it, but not so much like the pork. So we kind of transition. So we're building platform to do that. Dates and specifics, Justin's in control of those. I think he's releasing things pretty soon, but he's fully building that. But I will be doing the lead instruction on that, and it's going to allow a number of people to attend, a small number,
Yeah.
and then, but
I think he'll release those dates in a couple
pretty
weeks.
soon. It's it's fairly pricey, and you got to get yourself down there, and you got to house yourself. So it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But
But
it's
there's
pretty
also
cool.
the video
There will
version.
be a video version, and we will have a similar packet containing many of the same things, as well as pork specific recipes and other material that I need to generate. So look for those things if you're interested on the meat.
Yep.
On the meat end of things, of course, we do many things here, but meat is one portion.
Yep.
So.
Thanks, Suburban, for that reminder. And I will go ahead and close this out because it is definitely getting late. We could go on forever with you guys. You guys are awesome.
I got stuff to do.
We do have to work. So
good.
We will say good night.
Yep.
We will see you next week. Our drawing is going to be next week on the live show. So if you want to
check out all the way to the end of
today's
video on the drawing. Weren't we supposed to do a drawing tonight?
No, we were trying to figure out when to do a drawing.
All right, we decided not to.
But
soon.
Well,
a monthly drawing coming up.
We do have a monthly drawing at some point one of these weeks, but our 1,500 goal drawing will be next week live. Check out today's video on the beef butchering montage.
If you don't watch out, we'll have a 3,000 drawing also next week, but I don't know about that.
I think the next drawing will have to be 5,000 because we're going to be jumping like crazy, right? No, I don't know. We'll have to decide that.
I'm not worried about it.
Good night, guys.
Right.
Have a great week. We'll see you next week at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Sunday night. Bye.
Good night.